All right, I guess we're live. I'm going live. Don't know how well I'll be able to keep track of the chat though. Light mode. All right. I don't even know how to use light mode. Let me see. Actually, that's the one I want. I'm not really used to VS Code, so light mode. All right, we're gonna start using the LLMs, huh? Can I close all the other tabs? Close tabs to left. Close tabs. Sorry, this is starting, like I haven't prepared anything. Oh my god, I have so many browsers open. So many browsers, so many IDs. So you'll have to bear with me. Find.com. How do I turn on light mode in VS Code? Oh, what's light mode in Discord? Like, did you see my Discord? I don't think I have Discord open on this computer. All right, I thought that people prefer to have light mode because it's more visible on the stream or something. Oh no, that was Slack. It's the Discord for grown-ups. All right. So what am I going to do today? I actually don't really know yet. Is this font big enough, or should I bump it up some more? I'm so not used to code at that resolution. Like usually I have 4K. So there's two things I want to do today. Like one is like explore Langflow, just because I want to get some shit done and I want to understand how it works. So this is probably going to be like less of an LLM heavy thing, but who knows? And then the other thing I wanted to do is like some more straightforward software engineering, which is adding a like a little table thingy to my glaze tool. So just to show you what that's like, there's this bubble table library, which is pretty cool, right? It like shows you tables in the terminal. Yeah, maybe I'll start with that. And I can like say filter stuff. And so what I want to do is I want to integrate that into my glaze tool, which is a tool that can take like say, is there some data in here? Yeah, so which can take some JSON, like all kinds of formats, and then it can output them as tables, or it can output it as CSV, and you can do all kind of things to filter it. You know, to it even has like JQ. which I always forget how to use. I think this is how it works. I don't even know. I don't know what the fuck. I always forget how JQ works. This was weird though. In any case, expected object got float. Who cares? So this tool, I basically want to add like this interactive output mode. And maybe that's a good thing to start on stream, just to start with like some actual programming and not start with some weirdness. I don't know what I'm doing, meandering. Although that's a big part of programming with LLMs as well, right? It's like working on stuff you don't know how to do and figuring out how that works. But I'm going to start with integrating the table, and this is going to be interesting because I recently switched to Cursor. Before I was using mostly Golang to do my Go development. Also, this is going to be really fun because they just had a major upgrade, so probably everything broke. And I have this like huge code base here with like all this crap. It's huge because it's all in the same workspace, all my 15,000 libraries to do things. So I don't know how well Cursor is going to deal with that. Like on the one hand, how VS Code is going to deal with just a huge Go project, and then how Cursor itself, like the LLM stuff, is going to deal with it. I think that will be easier because it's easier to scope. One thing I've been doing is I just leave both IDEs open and I switch back and forth as I need. Like the refactoring inside Golang is much better than the one inside VS Code, and using the LLM to refactor can be really nice, and it can also just be like expensive and slow and whatnot. Also, I am using, and this is a new tool that I've started using, which is cursorlens.com, which is like a proxy that Cursor uses so that I can hit different models and stuff. But also what's really cool about it is that it will track the conversations, their cost, and hopefully I can use the logs to extract out what I did with it. So I think this is still running locally. It is not running locally. So how did I run this? This is the first thing that we have to figure out. So here I have a Docker compose from work. I'm going to kill that. And then I think this is in Cursor Lens. Yeah. And then I think this was like pnpm dev. I'm not gonna upgrade just now. So I think it's nvm use. I'm gonna use this, and then I think I can do this. All right. Anyway, pnpm dev. So, it's starting on 3000. Can I change that? Because my ngrok is on 3000, and I don't want to change that. So we do need to have ngrok because Cursor doesn't want to hit localhost. And then I think in Cursor, let me see if it's enabled. If I go on the model, I can use my OpenAPI key and it hits the thing here. So if I press verify, this is not going to work, which is probably due to this. Is this not the right time, right? So maybe the ngrok died. Well, I guess the ngrok died, so so much for that. So this seems to work. I'm not sure. It's compiling, it's slow, it's doing its whole, it's like Next.js crap. And then I need to update this here. Maybe remove the slash, I think. And then if I go here, What the fuck? Failed to fetch. I struggled a little bit yesterday as well with that. Because it's doing this like curl this, so maybe we can investigate. Oh, this is starting well, isn't it? So it's hitting this endpoint, and so why is it not doing anything here? Oh, see, it's getting some errors. Please make sure the database server. Oh, okay. So I do need to run my. That's right. I do need to run my Postgres, which I had running. So let's start Postgres, and then let's do this. Error not found. I'm going to restart this just to make sure that it initializes correctly, and then. All right, that looks better at least. So if I restart this, it should now have some kind of dashboard. It will recompile its whole Next.js stuff. And yeah, this is great. So this is what it looks like. And then I hope if I test this again, that it will work this time. No, it won't. It won't work. What the fuck? All right, but so at least this works. And then configurations. Default model is Cloud Sonnet. And then we do have GPT-4o. If this is bugging me for a few more minutes, I'll just switch back to just using the real models. But I had it working yesterday, so that was pretty cool. Why is it not working? That you have not spend limit? Yeah, no, but that's not what it is. Oh, and you see my key. All right. All right, let me kill my key. I'm also not really following the chat, so. No, it's bring your own key. And I don't think it ever will not have bring your own key. What I could see happening is that Cursor, the company, just like acquires whatever Cursor Lens is, and then integrates that, which I hope they do. Let me just cancel my OpenAI key. I should be more careful. I'm not a great streamer. Oh my god. I guess this is not really a LLM programming problem right now. It's like more me not being used to streaming, because I should prepare that stuff up front. Because I should prepare that stuff up front. So all right, API keys, manual cursor revoke. All right. So I'm still confused by this, because that was working pretty nicely yesterday. And the weird thing is that I don't see this. Oh, I see this here in the chat completions, and I do get a completion. And it says, is there an error here? Stop. Just say hi and nothing else. So this is where you'll be able to see my tool glazed in action. Just to show it, like usually I just use JQ to do this, but here you can look at this, and then I can do output YAML, for example, because I like YAML. And then I'll see that stuff. And then it did answer. So this curl call actually works. please contact us again. This reads, so maybe I should just, hello. Hey, well, I guess it works. And if I refresh this, then I will have seen in my logs here. How's clicking the logs work? Is it like doing some crazy Next.js recompilation? Yep. This is so... All right, but we should see, yeah, this is the just hi, hi, hi. This is really nice. Like, this is a really nice visualization of it. Is there like an export to Markdown for the whole chat? Because this is something I like doing. Maybe I'll contribute that. Maybe that's something we can use Cursor to build actually later on. I'm not going to dive into a new project just now. Let's do something I actually know how to do. So we want to add this table thing, right? Like I've got the code base of Bubble Table, which is the library that I want to add to my project. I've got it open. And so if you look at my workshop slides, I gave a workshop about how to become a 10x programmer, which is amazing. It's on YouTube now, so let me just update the link in here. LLM working programmer manual. I guess it's open down here because I keep refreshing it to see the number of views. So let me add this in here. And remove this. Oh, righty. And so here in the workshop slides, I close my tab like an idiot. I also lose half my brain while I'm streaming in terms of my shortcuts and like how to do things. So bear with me. Like this is definitely me on slightly half brain. So in the handouts for this talk, which I made super wide because I wanted to print them out, I did print them out. There's a bunch of like graphs like this. So this is how I approach like LLM programming. Is I think LLMs can't really think very well, so they're much better used as like little language translators. And then when you have that language, not only is like clear language, you know, these like nodes here are also always useful for humans, these intermediate artifacts. So those are not agent graphs per se, because there's a human going to be in the loop at each one of those, because I never found the quality of the end results of an LLM to be 100% perfect. And then if you don't clean up little things in there, then it just accumulates. Also, I think it's just like good engineering to actually know what your system is doing. So one of the things that I'm going to do is, because currently I don't really have context information on how Bubble Table works, right? Like it has a relatively nice README actually, which not all projects do. But it's like a lot of tokens, and I'm not sure if the information in there is really useful. Like I don't care about making the examples, right? Like I do care about how do you use this to actually make stuff. And so the first thing I'm going to do while I develop is that I generate these like little intermediate documents. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my headquarters, and then I'm going to go into third party, and then I'm going to, what did I do? Where did I move this? I think I moved this into my work, and I do have a tiny little change in here. Bubble table. So I'm going to minor bump go version for generics bump go version to allow bubble table to be used in projects with generics. Gonna, do I have forks? No. So let me fork this repo, add remote origin, git remote rename up, no, origin this, git remote rename upstream, oops, origin, no. That's what I mean with losing my brain. All right, so now I have a fork here, and then I'm actually going to go into my third party here. I don't know if symbolic links work that well, or if I should just clone it. I'm just gonna go clone it. All right. Bubble table. Minor git checkout track. Oh, this way. Minor. Why does... Oh, because it cloned it as remote origin. There we go. Git remote add origin, git at github.com. You see, this is the kind of stuff I should just prepare before streaming, I guess. I'm not sure. Evertraz bubble table. Git fetch origin, git checkout, Vazen minor bumps, and now I'm gonna add this to my Go work file to have it in my big project. Because I do want to dive into the source code and work with the source code while actually working on my real project. Because, so the thinking behind this is, and I think I'm actually going to open just the Glaze subfolder. And I wonder if that will work. All right, let me try this. This is new to me. I've never worked on my big Go project inside Cursor. I haven't done much Go programming with Cursor either. And I'm going to go grab some tea while this is indexing. Is this new version available? No. And then I guess Go PLS is working. I'm not sure what this is about. Hello. All right, cool. And then can I add a folder here? Add folder to workspace. Oh, that's nice. I didn't know you could do that. I'm new to VS Code as well, so it's definitely going to be an interesting challenge. And then if I go back to my JetBrains, hopefully this will have added as third party my bubbles tables and recognizing it. All right, let me grab some tea and then we'll be back and you'll have to tell me in case anybody's watching if the resolution, maybe I'll bump the resolution just a tad, just to be sure. One reason I'm doing this is also just to flex my cursor skills and then post it on YouTube because people are like, you can't really program with LLMs. The gulf is like ever growing. The gulf is like ever growing in terms of programmers who are like, this is so fucking great and I can code program so fast. And then people who are like, this doesn't work and it's generating crappy code. And we're going to code ourselves into a pile of legacy, which I strongly disagree with actually, because as I will show you in my techniques, I actually approach the problem with some kind of engineering and concept and workflow, right? Like we know how to deal with crappy code and have, you know, all these different ways of organizing work on a team. And not that I want to ascribe like, you know, humanness to an LLM or even think that they take the place of an agent. Like they're just too dumb for that. But they are something that you have to collaborate with, right? Like they're a generative part of your workflow. And because they understand human language, a lot of the artifacts that you need to steer the LLM into a direction that should work is actually good stuff for humans too, which is really great, right? It's like you can build your own documents, then use the documents to actually prompt the LLM. So that's what we're going to do, right? It's like I actually want a nice little tutorial on how to use table, and especially how to just have table with pagination maybe. I don't even know how pagination works, but we're going to start with that, right? It's like going to make me a little tutorial on how to do pagination with bubble table. And I need to make my tea, else I'll forget. Actually, so much better than tea is the. Well, actually, I'm going to keep the energy drink for later when I have when I'm losing steam. So tea it is. Actually, while I'm gone, I'm going to start generating this, right? So it's I'm gonna take the README out of bubble table, right? Because it contains a lot of information, and then I'm going to use the pagination example actually. Write a clear and concise how-to for a developer on how to build a paginated table with bubble table. One sentence. No, so it's section, heading, one sentence, code example. Also add a introduction paragraph. So what I'm doing, right, in my head, what I'm doing is like I'm going to put a lot of context that contains the information that I want the LLM to transform, right? It's like at the end of the day, the information is already there because the code is there. So I'm just transforming it into a different format that is more useful. And then I hope that the trained knowledge of the LLM, so like the corpus that it has been trained on, things like what is a README, what's the structure of a README, what is Go, what is the Go programming language, that it augments and uses that trained knowledge to recognize patterns and to provide additional, you know, just like the additional little sentences that we need. So if we look at what it generated, like bubble table is a powerful and flexible library, blah, blah, blah. This is like the usual LLM speak / how developers talk about their project. They're always powerful and flexible, which means literally nothing. So I could just like scrap that part, right? It's like bubble table is a library for creating interactive tables in Go using the Bubble T framework. That's a really good sentence for an LLM to know what this is about, right? Like it gives you the name of the library. It tells you that it's a library. It tells you what it's for. So creating interactive tables, it tells you the language, and it tells you this like overarching frameworks that we use. So if I now, even if I just put this sentence into a context, right, it will already know if I show you that just this one sentence, assuming that it doesn't really know this library, I think this library is going to be pretty obscure. So if I put this in here, build an interactive table, right? It's like if I remove this, of course, it's probably going to do Python or JavaScript because that's what it's kind of been reinforced to do. Actually, let's show it. I'll show you how, right? Like it's going to do React because Claude, because it has artifacts and it can render React apps in this little component, it's like heavily biased towards React, which is great. and then whatever, it just like generates broken code, right? Like I don't expect it to really know what it's doing here, except regurgitate some kind of tutorial from somewhere and then mix it all up with different things. Like, right, it's a great prompt because it tells exactly what you need, but the context is not there for the LLM to do a good job. It's just gonna, it's probably really easy to add components UI input, and I suppose this is more like a bug on Anthropic's part that it doesn't even get it. So usually these things are kind of easy to fix. You kind of like figure out, oh, which library has it been reinforced on, and then do it. Or maybe it just like completely hallucinates, but you're like, oh yeah, this is great. Like this, right? Like this actually totally makes sense. This is readable code as far as it can tell. It uses Tailwind because it's been reinforced on that. But the library doesn't exist, and maybe if I add an existing library that has like the component names won't exactly match, and then maybe they'll take like different attributes, like these kinds of little details, those can very easily be corrected with providing an API, right? And I can show you how you can already massage code, like the LLM output. Usually, if I'm 2-3 messages deep and the thing I want to try doesn't work, I stop. But here, there's a chance that it could work. But I'm not going to start chatting and saying like, oh, you get this error, like try to fix it, because this is just, I don't know what I'm doing at that point. I don't have a clear plan in my head. Instead, I'm going to think a little bit about the plan that I want to do, and I'm going to assume that I'm in a company, right? And we have like a set of widgets that we've already built, and I'm going to say like, oh, we have all these widgets, right? So what I'm going to do here, because I'm lazy, I'm going to do extract a bullet point list of the components in here and a single keyword sentence to describe them. I'm just going to create like a temporary artifact, which I'm going to use. So this, slightly more keywords, please. Cool. I'm going to assume that this is a good start. I'm going to start a new context because I don't want this in my context right? Like what I want to do right now is I want to create a library that has roughly the API that I need, but the LLM, made a mess. So it's create a TypeScript React interface description, just the types, no implementation for this list of widgets. And having them create interfaces and stuff is pretty great because they're very consistent, right? More attributes. They're very consistent, and so that makes for a nice starting set, right? And then if you have something that's not consistent, just prompting it to be more consistent by providing an example works pretty well as well. So we have this add short doc strings to each widget type, just to make this like a little bit nicer. I'm not going to look too closely at this, but like I'm going to assume for the sake of demonstration today, since I am in demo mode, that this roughly makes sense. At least at first approach, it doesn't really seem bad. And because I know there's no logic in this, I don't really have to look all that closely. If there's type errors, then, well, that's what static typing is for. It will tell it. But since I don't really have a goal in mind, I won't, necessarily tweak these things. But let's assume that the LLM comes up with that and it's like, yeah, it hallucinated small, medium, large, which is, not a bad idea to use as a size attribute in here. But I'm going to assume like, no, size is actually in pixel. So size of button props is in pixel. Update the new type, only output the new type. This will also allow me to show how much faster it is to build things in Cursor. But so, right, those are the kind of things that you can do with an LLM. Here, of course, it probably would have been faster to do it by hand, but I need to do a mental switch when I switch by hand. Like, right, like I wouldn't have been able to talk necessarily while I was doing that. And then for bigger refactors, that's where the LLM starts to shine. It's like I call it like squishy refactor. So all of these have like CSS properties as style, right? But what I want to do is like add maybe a theme enum to each component. Add a theme enum to each component. And so this is what I call like fuzzy refactor. It's like, great, like it wouldn't be hard to do it by hand, but that's the whole point. Doing it by hand would take me like 3-4 minutes, and I might do some stupid mistake because I'm a human. I might forget it on one component or so. Here, I have much less. This took me 20 seconds, and it's like cognitively pretty nothing. The energy it takes me to verify that this is good, it's not big, right? So, and then things you can do is like, write a clear and concise README that explains to other programmers how to build UIs with this widget library, intro paragraph, sections, one sentence, code example. I like the structure section, one sentence, code example, because that's how I like to read docs. I'm like, usually the title's enough and the code example is enough, but adding one little sentence often helps the model generate better code and better docs. I don't know. I don't know what the build with Claude button is, actually. I've never seen it. Or I haven't consciously seen it. Where do you see the build with Claude? Is there... I think build with Claude is like for the whole, if you use the API and then you want like a prompting workbench and all of that stuff. Is that what you're referring to? I think if you do build with Claude, if you do the build with Claude thing, is that what you're referring to, the workbench? I think it's like a prompting workbench. I've never really used it. I know that they have some pretty nice engineers at Anthropic compared to OpenAI. Like, I'm not saying OpenAI has crappy engineers, but they don't build good application in my right. Like, if you look at the dashboard, the coding workbench here, it's just really minimal compared to this, which also is consistently getting better. But anyway, so here we have like a nice little markdown thing. I don't like this actually, because I want to have like make more sections with examples starting small and getting progressively bigger. Also showcase for each component a use of its attributes, because I do want like a little bit more meat in here. Here it doesn't necessarily know what the different attributes are for, but so this is nice, right? Like this shows how to do, like you really don't need more, but also this is kind of, because it has this sentence here, it's often more useful for the LLM than just the type description, because the LLM doesn't care if it's code or if it's not code. It just sees tokens, right? And then the patterns that are encoded in human language are often like a little bit more subtle. It gives you like the intent of the component. So of course, if I have a component called table, the intent is kind of clear. But once you start, it gets fuzzier, right? And so having a little bit of sentence here is nice. This also shows how important it is to name components in a very like human readable way. The more intent you encode in your vocabulary, the better the LLM will do. And the way I learned that is I was in e-commerce before and doing a lot of accounting stuff. And so I had a lot of classes called like order something. But of course, order is like both a verb and a noun. It's a keyword in SQL. It's a keyword in like APIs. And also, so it was always kind of getting confused about order, especially, right? Like I would write in like order attributes and it would say like lower than, higher than. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is order attributes like, a customer name and stuff like that. So naming things, and we're used as programmers to either name things like very concisely, like if you name a variable a, the LLM has like no fucking idea what to do with the variable a. There's like some kind of reasoning where it can like kind of do a good job, but then if the variable's called like sum of invoice totals, then it's clear that the variable is for summing invoice totals, and it will use it like much more appropriately. It doesn't mean that it won't do like reasoning errors or like use it correctly, but at least it will do a better job. And also, even if the code's wrong, like me as a programmer, I'll just go in and like pretty quickly figure out, okay, well, summing the total invoice totals, that's fine. I'm going to delete the code that it uses to compute that, replace it with my own, but it's a good API, right? It's like a good language barrier. And I think because it's so consistent and trained on so many like relatively good design patterns, it's really useful to just use the APIs that the LLM generates and then just like fill the details in by hand, right? I haven't tried the new V0 dev out because because I have other stuff to do. But yeah, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it like changes my world again. Do I want to try it out? Yeah, why not? Because we'll see something that I never know how to do. Upgrade plan. Oh, it's one more $20 a month, like whatever. All right, cool. So what am I going to do? Generate a website to design custom guitar bodies for CNC machining. I always use like pretty different domains than like say, make an e-commerce website, because I want to avoid having the training corpus like influence how well it's doing. Like, is it just copying shit out of the training corpus because people have built like a million e-commerce websites? And then also because this is a vocabulary that's very different from code vocabulary, right? And so when I see a variable called guitar sum somewhere or whatever, I know that this is not influencing stuff. This is kind of fucking wild, isn't it? I mean, of course, it's not a Stratocaster. Like, why would it do this? But what the fuck? Right. So these kinds of bugs, like, sure, I can fix that. It probably has like, a callback called like on scale change, like, so I can just delete all the rest. But like all the scaffolding is kind of here. Oh man, this is wild. Well, maybe if we're rolling, we can look at this, right? Because this is LLM generation. There's just like a lot of code in here. It's nice. It's like a nice working demo. How would I start approaching this as a good programmer, right? Like, as a use effect to render this, like maybe that's not the way I want to do it. I am actually not a good web developer, so I wouldn't off the top of my head know how to do this, but I know I want to extract this out, right? So can I chat with the code here? Extract the computation of the path to its own class. Extract drawing the shape, the guitar shape to its own component, including shape templates. I don't know which model it's using in the back. Like, this might, depending on the model it uses, this might be asking a little bit too much of it. I know for Claude this would be just fine, but GPT-4o probably as well. A GPT-4 and like GPT-3.5 definitely not. So there's like some vibe checks on how you can prompt and how much they can do in one step. If you know the model and how it behaves, you might need to break it down into smaller steps, right? Here I'm going to go straight to generate the API and the code and do all of it at once, because I hope they use something good beyond it. In the worst case, it will show you like what misinterpreted LLM instructions look like. All right, so just having the guitar shape is great, right? Like, I don't know if width and height makes that much sense, but this is already just in terms of API, you know, maybe it's not perfect. Maybe I don't want to have like a method per thing, but this is roughly a decent API for it, right? It's like compute path and then draw shape, for example. So I don't think it's Sonnet, because Sonnet would have done much more. It would have understood what shape templates is. This obviously hasn't really understood what a template is. It has made like methods out of it. And then it already draws the thing, right? Like, it doesn't return me an object for the path. I'm not sure how this like SVG drawing stuff is exactly, but yeah, this is definitely not Sonnet, I think, which would surprise me on a cheap plan, right? But it shows you like the kind of stuff that an LLM will do. And then the more modularized, right, like stuff is going to break here. I don't know exactly why, because I don't know V0 dev. But at this point, I'm more like thinking about my application, right? It's like I'm thinking about the software architecture that I want here. Let's focus on guitar shape. Do not use the canvas rendering, instead return a path object. Furthermore, I'm going to keep asking it like a little bit. I'm going to keep pushing it a little bit, just see if it fails, and if it, yeah, whatever. Furthermore, store templates as a hash of path. Yeah, no, zero dev is great. It's faster than, right? Like there's also bad models. I'm putting bad in quotes. Bad models, but they're fast, are great. Like, sometimes I don't want good code. Sometimes I just want the structure of the code and something that resembles and then renders. And then I go back to a good model, which is slower, right? And then because it's slower, it actually has an impact on your day. Copy pasting, like before Cursor, there were days where I would just spend my day copy pasting. Where did my code go? All right, there we are. So this already looks much closer to what I want, right? Like, this is a nice path class. Maybe it's wrong. Probably it's wrong. Is this G code? I don't know. But the API is good, right? Like, this is, I can see at a glance, even if the code's wrong, this is the class that I wanted structure-wise, or at least it's a decent good start for an API, and then I'll modify it as I go. And like, I do like this. And then now it knows the templates, right? And like, so this is probably code that at a glance I can say like, yeah, this is fine. And yeah, whatever this is good for. And then I don't even know this component here. I don't know if use effect is the way of doing it or stuff like that for canvases. I assume it is, because that's probably like very present in the training corpus. In any case, this is, right, like assuming this was, if I'm a graphic designer, for example, or I'm a product designer, I can spend a lot of time just working on this, right? Like, the designer's job is not to make like perfect finished code that like if you have scale 0, it doesn't crash or whatever. What they care about is like, do I want to have like a drop down here? Do I want to have a drop down there? And I'll generate code. And it's not about like, oh, they generate the full application. It's great. But because they've been like iterating on this, and they've like thought about the product design itself, and they've talked to users and all of that, that takes time. They are able to build a decent prototype, and maybe I'll use the prototype and build upon it. Maybe I'll just use the insights gained from the prototype. And so assuming I want to use the insights gained from the prototype is like, write a concise specification for the application so that we can share it with users and project managers and team members. Then also write a section about the component guitar shape and how it is used in the application, right? Like, maybe the whole output of this, even though I have like a ton of working code, is just like a specification document. And that's one of the reasons why I think LLMs actually allow us to write less code, is that by writing a lot of code and then just keeping the stuff that really works and the thing that we really want, we actually write less code. We're able to be much more intentful and about the code that we write, right? Like maybe the only output of all of this coding session right now is this document. And then in the before times, how long did it take us? Like 10 minutes. In the before times, this was taking like a lot of time, right? Like this is something the product designer can do pretty much by themselves. And then this guitar shape component is something that I can add to it. And there's no code in this, right? Like who cares if it hallucinates? All I need to do is go over it, remove a couple of sentences here and there. The same way I would just review a specification document from a human. And in fact, it's good at this point to ask exactly the questions I would have asked before, where I'm like, do we really need like responsive design? This is just for iPad, you know, doing these kinds of things. But it's a great description of what I just saw, right? It's just exactly what I would like a document to be. And then maybe people want, you know, have a different style format for all of this and how to do things. You can just like describe the structure of the document you want to have, and then you can put it out. See, these sentences, I call them like LLM fringe gobbledygook. They're always there because of the human reinforcement learning thing. They always say that the stuff is like modular and extensible, allowing for like, those are always delete. Like it's a habit of mine. I just go to the end of the file and I delete the last paragraph. Usually I delete the first paragraph, but that's in here. And then here, there is like, you have to be careful, right? Like because you're going to build upon this, you do have to review this more carefully than just saying like, oh, it looks good. But that's like good work. Is like, because I haven't spent my day programming right now, my brain is actually in a state where I can do a pretty good review. Like I am fresh in my head. I've focused on like features and not code. I'm not tired because I didn't understand how the fucking Shadow CDN React Tailwind was set up. Like it just removes a lot. I didn't even have an editor open, right? It's like I don't need to save files or whatever. I just got to this end document really, really quickly. And so now I can just check this into GitHub and say like, oh, look, this is open for review. Please add your comments. Also, if you want a demo, just open this v0 dev and, you know, mess around. It's not perfect, but it's a demo. Or I take a few screenshots, right? Yeah, they definitely, I mean, building context to do the kind of stuff they just did, it's not really hard, I think. And I think it's actually best to get into the habit of building these things yourself. And I also hope that open source projects are going to just add the nice context for the library straight into the library, so that, you know, it's just people can build up on it. But I'll go into this, like creating these ad hoc documents as we go. Also, you can start to see the danger of LLMs is that you keep having ideas and they're so easy to kind of mess with that you just end up building something completely different. Because like, why wouldn't I design like a guitar body designer that exports, you know, CNC stuff? Like maybe I need it, or maybe, yeah, it is a real problem. Like I don't think it's a joke. I can show you what I do. Let me see if I can make a scene as well where I can switch to the camera. All right, so I think, ooh, this is loud. All right, so I think I don't really know how OBS works, but just to show you, because I have, you know, you end up having all these ideas, and they're usually pretty good ideas because they come from a place of need or a place of experimentation. Like they're not just like they have context, right? So what I end up doing is I just like write them down, and like this is one day of ideas or whatever, and then you know I'll never build some of them, but they're pretty decent project ideas, right? It's like, oh, I want to emulate a USB keyboard with the phone, or I want like a tiny URL to I don't know. They're all just like nice little side project ideas, right? That come up as I'm messing with things, and so by now I have like 3 sketchbooks filled with shit like this, and like they sometimes I'll just add a QR code as well to the Claude conversation or whatever. Um, and it's horrible, right? Like by now I have like, I think 680 side projects, and I've built like maybe 10, because it still takes time to build them. It's ideas are still like much more easily to do. And the weird thing is like knowing that each of these ideas might take you an afternoon or just like 2 or 3 hours or so, is, and I also realize you really need to add context. I have no fucking idea what this means. Like inline generation of UI, sure, whatever. But so add web server per SSE streaming of a log to Glaze, like, right? Like those are tailing files to the Glaze tool. Those are all things that probably it takes an hour to do them. And you can really exhaust yourself just, right? Like I used to hack for 5 hours straight. Like I can't build 5 features of that scope in 5 hours. Like my brain just gives out. But when I do it, like my brain is not tired because I'm just talking to a model saying like, yeah, it wouldn't be great to build this. So it's a really weird feeling. It's like, it's really like having a team of engineers, like junior developers, whatever you want to call it, like LLMs basically, like they behave differently than humans for sure. But still the feeling is kind of the same. You've been delegating stuff all day, and then at the end it's like kind of there. Often it's like pretty well there. But I haven't really done something, right? Like I've just been chatting. You can literally do it with like audio chat as well, if that's something you like. So really weird problem. And I've kind of, I'm in a place right now where I just like work and then I don't do side projects very much, because I do too much at work. There was a time where I would just do like open source all the freaking time, because now I wasn't like really tired, but also I was in coding mode. Now after work, I'm in this like big state where I'm just like, I built too much. I have to, I don't know, I have to do something else. And it's kind of, I do miss the feeling of writing code, and I have it less and less. Like, I did like to sit down and say like, oh, today I'm just going to build this API, but now it takes 5 minutes to build the API the way I want. And it's like, it's not satisfying, right? It's like, it's just there. And I can only think so much about architecture. Also, once you get used to things, like architecture is not that crazy. Like it's not very satisfying to do cognitively, because I just like let my experience speak, and I was like, I want like massage logs. I've done this 50 times. Now it's going to happen instantly. It still doesn't feel fulfilling, right? But so anyway, to go back to the other scene and see if that works. Oh, nice. I still haven't started programming, but also I wrote like a shit ton of code, right? Like I did, even though it feels like I've just been yapping all the time. This is actual work. Like this is actual engineering that would have worked well. As I've messed with like some API documentation here, right? Like with some examples of how to use it. I've like have a guitar designer prototype with SVG drawing. Like those are all pretty useful things. And then actually, since I said that I don't really know about handling SVG in React, is like what are some common patterns to render a SVG path into a canvas in React, right? It's something I don't really know. I'm going to use the web to search for it. Find always kind of skeptical of which sources it necessarily uses, but and how much of its training corpus it puts in all of this in here. So I'll often just go and be like, what is this really what you want? And then I'll do a couple of different searches, right? Like I'll be like SVG rendering in React design patterns. And then it'd be great if I could select, please just use some blog posts or whatever. So this is like maybe a better source than just a list of Stack Overflow things. But I will just this I'll actually just scroll over. Like right now, I'm just gathering some ideas. So what I'm interested in is this use effect that I saw previously, right? Like this actually just renders a path, but this is obviously not a computed path. Actually, the path are computed on props change. What patterns for that? I'll just like, the cool thing about this is I'm learning about something. I'm actually like not opening 80 tabs, right? It's like I kind of have, even if this is hallucinated or not really great or whatever, and because I'm not even reading it, but it does feel like a conversation. Also, you'll see me scrolling through things. Like my brain does a weird thing where I can kind of read stuff at that speed, or at least pick up on like some patterns and stuff. So this was doing it with state and effect, for example, which I saw while scrolling by. Like I don't know if most people do it that way or whatever. But this was interesting, right? It's like the use effect dynamically thing. So it's like in line with SVG with props. And then I might be like, okay, is this use effect pattern to render SVG common? How does it work? And maybe I'll switch to Sonnet at some point, because Sonnet is better at writing, and it's also like a little bit better at explaining things. Like I don't know. It's just like nicer. So this is right. I'm still kind of skeptical, the same way I would be if I just read stuff on the internet and be like, "Is this true? Is this like?" But it does seem to be a thing, right? It's not something totally out of this world. There's sources here. If I, if I actually be like, okay, well, whatever, I'm just going to use this as a search engine. I can always click on the links, right? And then what's nice once you do things like this, for example, I was like, oh, this is a great article, which I don't know if it is, but like assuming that I read it, I'm like, oh, this is great. So using the guidelines, using the information you wrote, and these guidelines give me a clear tutorial on how to do runtime computed SVG rendering in React, where the path is generated by a method. And then at the end, make a list of exercises for me to learn these patterns and guidelines in increasing order of complexity, no solution, right? And so because I know that the actual knowledge, fundamentally understanding how dynamic SVGs work in React, I do need to write it myself, right? Like the more you experiment yourself and you actually run into real life problems and know if things work, this is how you get, or this is how I get at least the knowledge that I need in the future. I don't need the APIs. I don't need all of that stuff. What I want is this, and some guidance on how this works. I use Find because I was using Perplexity, and then somehow the results got really bad for a while, and I had like a better chance with Find, so I just went with Find. Now I have subscriptions to both. I know how Find behaves, kind of. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like a matter of works well enough for me. I don't know. Yeah, there's no way of keeping track. And it feels like, so I've been doing it for 2 years, right? Like when GitHub Copilot beta came out, I was like, this is the best shit ever, because I'm always trying out like new development tools and refactoring tools and all of that. And then when ChatGPT came out and everybody was like goofing around with it. So I did a fair amount of bit of machine learning up to 2017. And the last paper I studied in my paper study group was transformers, actually. And by that point, I was using like some CV stuff at work, and all this like deep learning stuff was like kind of working, but not really. And I was like, I learned what I needed to learn, and then somehow this all kind of doesn't work, and I lost track of it. So I didn't really get into GPT-2. I saw GPT-3 things where I was like, this is all the weirder, less wrong stuff. I'm not interested right now. But then as ChatGPT came out, I actually even didn't want to test it the first day. I was just like, yeah, what is this? But then I tried it out. I wrote some, like rap battles between Postgres and MySQL or whatever. But then I think it came out on a Friday. By Sunday, I was like, this works way too well. Like it does way too many crazy things that starting tomorrow, I'm going to use it for everything. And so since then, which is like now almost 2 years GPT, OpenAI stuff, I've been using it for everything. I've been trying really hard to learn how to use it to do X, Y, Z. I try to do nothing by hand anymore, which, can be quite rough. But also I was able to coast on my general knowledge and then very quickly, I just realized already how much I could do with ChatGPT 3, right? Or 3.5 or whatever it was at the time, which is not a great model for coding compared to what we have today. But they still do the same kind of errors, right? Like Sonnet still does the kind of stupid shit that 3.5 does. It takes one token to completely derail Sonnet as well. So the bigger and more impressive these models get, because Sonnet is really impressive, the more to me it feels that they're dumb, right? Like, why would Sonnet be so impressive at doing all these things and then one little token trips it up? Like, why? Well, because they can't reason. they can match patterns, which encodes a lot of reasoning that humans have been doing, either by the sheer force of notation, right? Like notation really helps thinking because it just makes pattern matching that much faster. It makes things more concise to look at, right? If you can see it in like mathematical notation, where before people were writing things out in like full sentences, like impossible to parse. And then if you put in like a nice little formula, then it becomes really readable. So I think LLMs just like have a force of that, just like playing with notation. And what we do as programmers, API and stuff like that, is just like creating good notation to lower the cognitive cost of working with code, right? Like the computer doesn't give a shit. A computer just like executes instructions, absolutely mind melting for humans to look at. So what we do is like creating notations that encode a lot of the logic that we either want to happen or help us reason about, so help us humans reason about things, right? Or communicate about things, also very important, right? Like we choose names and we argue all the time in programming teams because we don't know how to share our thoughts. Humans are really bad at sharing their thinking. Language kind of helps, but I can give you an article about how to use SVGs in React. Like this is not going to transfer my thoughts about it. Like you won't be able to use SVGs the same way I do after I send you an article. As good as the article is, you might read it, you might get some sense, but also the way for you to actually acquire something resembling my understanding of SVGs in React is going to be writing code with SVGs in React, and then guided by my article, right? So that you explore a territory that might help your brain form the same understanding that I do. But the language itself doesn't really encode the thought. It just like encodes a path for you to learn these thinking patterns, and exercises for me are the way to do it, for example. Where was I going with this? This is like terrible for tangenting because I haven't written any real code. Like people are going to be, yeah, this is all yapping. Like none of this code works. It's all broken, which fair enough, it is, right? But to me, this year is really where this like kind of 10x happens is we can have a meeting with the designer, right? Where we like just both collaborate on a chat. And I'm missing like, you know, multi-person chats, which Persona AI and what the kids do have had for like forever. But really, I want the graphic designer and I want me to be in this chat, or at least share the thing so that the designer can chat about styling this while I'm chatting with it to make the APIs work. But even in the state it's now, right, we can communicate. Maybe the designer drives the LLM, maybe I do drive the LLM, maybe we would do it at both at the same time. By the end of the meeting, we actually for sure have a great spec. We have a really great document, especially if we add the transcript and transform that further to communicate what we are thinking about the thing we're building really, really well. Whereas without an LLM, not only wouldn't we have all of these things, but we might have like whiteboard drawings, and we might have like Figma things that if the graphic designer's fast enough, like we might have some artifacts, but all the text for this artifact would need to have to get written, and maybe you're not good at writing, or like for me, it's exhausting to write. It's really, really exhausting to write this kind of stuff. I never do it. As we well know, programmers are not good in general at doing it, partly because they just like didn't learn how to write, but mostly it's because it takes a shit ton of time to write a good document, right? Just typing it would take time, but I would have to edit it. I would like probably forget things. Then I would have go to lunch, and then my next meeting would happen, and then this document would never happen. I would have maybe a big video recording of the things, and then it really takes like a human a day to really digest a video recording of something, if at all. Like maybe it's 2 days to, but here it like kind of came for free, right? This document, I think, is worth gold. It means that our meeting of 1 hour with the graphic designer has produced a really high quality summary with examples, with screenshots, with like maybe working code. Maybe this is actually great code, right? Like I wouldn't say that the code we generated is bad. Like it doesn't work, but parts of them work, right? Like I don't know SVG very well, but like the API of this at least is exactly what I had. Because I, as a experienced software engineer, said like, yeah, this is how you should do it. Like kind of if you were pair programming, I would say like, yeah, I did my job as a pair programmer, right? This obviously is not a Stratocaster, so we would in the future add like, oh, can you generate it from files or whatever? But it is like, I would totally take this code and start commit it to my code base and then start working on it. Like I love starting from code that kind of runs, but not really, because it's fun to make it run. Like it's my programming style as well. So of course here the component doesn't work. I don't know if it's V0 or whatever, but like we know that this is a good start, and maybe the graphic designer would be like, nah, we kind of want to visualize it up top here, and we don't want to call this preview, we want tabs. All of that probably we can get a prototype going, and that's the stuff I hate writing in React, right? Like I hate figuring out which tab component to use to do what, and then styling the fucking button down here. Like my HTML looks actually absolutely horrible because I just literally write like plain HTML. So anyway, excursion, and I shouldn't do this too much because I'll run out of steam before writing any real code with Cursor. Actually, I am already filled my head with like weird stuff. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. So without further ado, we do have this tutorial here that I generated for the table model in Bubble Table. And I'm going to hope that this works. I hope this is good documentation. I'm going to assume that it is, but you can actually try it out, right? Like, so the standard pattern that I do, and I'm going to keep this in bubble table for now. Actually, I'm going to put it in glazed. And so I do have a folder ttemp, which is on my system. It's not under repo, but I started using them in repos. Ttemp is just a name for me to that I've been using. But so I'll just put the date, because the artifact we created is like, it's an artifact for today. But I don't think this is something I'll maintain in the future. It's just like kind of a historical thing. Like, oh, this is what I did that day. And here I'm going to paste this. I'm going to remove the last line. And then I'm going to do this. And so, for example, this is a really important section when you program in Go, because otherwise it will make up package names and it's really annoying to just like fix that. So I do have this little tutorial here, right? Like in a language that that I've never really used in Cursor. So why doesn't it? It's like a weird syntax highlighting, but whatever. This is all the documentation I'm going to add to my context now, right? And and the reason I do that, only using this context is like, now if this is not able to generate a test example, if this prompt is not good enough to do that, then I'm going to work on the prompt. And I'm going to correct it until I'm at least able to reliably generate like a test program, right? So I'm going to do, I'm going to do here LLM tests and examples. I'm going to create my new file main.go. And then here I'm going to use Composer maybe. So I'm going to take main.go, but then I'm going to add this bubble table doc that I just generated, right? What the heck? This is me programming on stream. It's like I lose my brain. So I just put in the tutorial, right? It's like write a demo program to show a test paginated table. And so this will basically copy paste out of the markdown, right? Like hopefully all the information to create stuff is like kind of already in there. And I know based on what I was showing before, right? Like this actually has all the important keywords. It has bubble table, it has Go, it has bubble T framework. So if it needs to add like framework information, it will know where to look. If it didn't have bubble T framework, maybe I will like hallucinate some kind of UI library around it. If I know that it doesn't know bubble T very well, I do have context builders for bubble T, which I'll show you later as an extension of this like ttemp mechanism. But let me go back to this main.go, and it's like, yeah, let's try it out. And like, I expect this to work. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to chat with it. Oh, see, this is the new Composer is just adding like a ton of context to the chat. So, which it doesn't need. So maybe I shouldn't use Composer in the future, because this like also costs money, right? But so, and why doesn't it even like allow me to apply it to the, what is going on? Is this because I'm using cursor lens? Like this is not what I wanted. So this was an experiment. Like I'm not that used to Composer. I'm just going to do it in the chat. I'm just going to be, no, I don't want this. I want bubble table pagination. Why is it not doing it? Oh my God, what? Cursor has been pretty fucking flaky lately. So who knows? All right, let's go. And yeah, the cool thing is like Cursor really allows you to skip so much of the copy paste, which if you trust the LLM, right, like your day is going to consist of like 90% of the time your coding is going to be copy pasting. And it's like, it's really fucking annoying to copy paste, especially if you have to like edit, you know, these ... lines that the LLMs like to do and stuff. It was really frustrating. Like there was a period of time before I switched to Cursor where literally 80% of my day, 90% was like copy pasting. And it's not like I shouldn't copy paste because that was still like the easiest way of doing something. But I was just like, what am I doing? I'm like a fucking servant to the LLM, just moving its code around. Well, yeah, I wanted the file content to be in the context, right? Like every little token in that markdown file is kind of curated to be good content. So yeah, I'm not sure. It's been pretty buggy lately. It's been like a little bit unpleasant, to be honest. But so I do hope that this thing is going to work. I also don't really know how the debugger really works in here. So you can see it uses like deprecated stuff. So if I do want to avoid it using the deprecated stuff, what I could do is add a set of guidelines, right? Like either I could add them here, or what I like doing often is new file, and it's like bubble t guidelines.md, and I said like use p dot run, not p dot start, to add that as information, right? It's like guidelines to use to follow when using bubble t. And I'll add those to my context, right? So, and I'll very often regenerate stuff just to make sure my prompt is actually robust, right? It's like I'll go in here and I'll be like pagination.md, guidelines.md, and now I'm going to be write a demo pagination program. And if that works, like, you know, reliably, and now it's like it will most certainly stop doing the p.start, right? Like, cool. That was like a lesson learned of, and then if stuff is broken, right, or there's an API that it misunderstands, I'll just add those little things to the context. And the cool thing is that these T-temps are now in here, so my colleagues will be able to reference them as we go forward, right? Like maybe we'll take this into the project guidelines or so. I've tried Zed, and yeah, the prompt library, the fact you can write plugins. This is exactly where I wanted to go right now to show you. The markdown stuff is kind of a workaround for Cursor. But so let me try this out. Like, yeah, like sometimes it has apply, sometimes it doesn't. It's just like, I really like the apply model. So one thing we can already see, right, is like, this is significantly different from the previous one. At least I think so. But also because we have static typing in Go, at least nothing mistypes, right? There's no deprecation warnings, like having linting, adding linting guidelines to everything. All of these things really save time. And the cool thing that you can do, let me see if I have a, if I do have something somewhere. I don't remember where it is. I think it's in JS. Yeah, so I do have a couple of prompts, really old, like I'm not doing much JavaScript at the moment, but I do have a ESLint rule prompt, which I can use to create ESLint rules. So you can do this kind of like stuff that's, I don't remember how to use it, Jesus fuck. How does this work? So fix problems is good. Provide suggestions. Oh, and this is the rule to be implemented. So for example, no component should contain the string manual. Instead, it should use dinosaur names instead. Some kind of like lint rules, right? Like I don't want anybody to name my components manual, and I want this to be shown automatically. I want it to have suggestions because I can feedback the suggestions to the LLM, but also it's useful for humans, like whatever. And so this it creates like ESLint rules. Like sometimes they're a little bit wonky, especially because I built this in like times where context window was much, much smaller. So I have like 1,000 token explanation of how ESLint rule APIs work, which is not great. And right? Like these terms, the more you get meta, the more you get like programming about programming, the more confused LLMs will get, just because node is such a wildly used things like node, context, all of these things, they're really like good tokens to make mistakes. So, however, you can already see this is like in a decent shape, right? And then I do have types in whatever for ESLint rules, so I can navigate this pretty quickly and fix it. And really, really useful. Like I use this to like just help freelancers use our coding guidelines. This would have done my head in before, right? It's like I really don't care about ESLint rules, API, how the AST is represented. I don't want to figure out if it's a literal or if it's like, string literal, like all of these little things that would take me the afternoon, to be honest, right? Like if I were to write this by hand, I know exactly what I want. I just want it out of the way. I don't want to spend the afternoon figuring out that you do need to do node.value.replace or that there's like fixer replace. Like this is just like a lot of knowledge that I don't care about, because even if I build 10 rules today, tomorrow I'll have forgotten how to do rules, right? So these prompts are really useful. I can show you what this expands to. So there's just like this is really concise. Like I would do this so differently today. But this was in the days of like 2000 token windows, right? Where you had to be really, really careful about all of these things. And coincidentally, this helped me get good at prompting. And I think this is still useful for like local models, right? Or like small models, which are cheap and fast. Like fast is good. So actually why not try it on a small model? Do I want to try it on a small model? I don't remember. I do have patterns set up. I don't want to look into my config because there's API keys in there. But let's see if we can just like start building. I really want to have Grok API access one day. Yo. All right. So let's see, what's the model that I want? Yeah, Llama 3, 8 billion parameters. Cool. How do I submit? Oh, it's Control Enter. Yeah, this is wild, right? Like this is good enough for me. Maybe I would use, if I were to use ESLint rules, I would definitely use Sonnet because it's like a one-off. If I were to code and iterate, just having the speed of this to do things is like a really good boon. And you can tell that this breaks down significantly, right, compared to the Sonnet one. But it's an 8 billion model thing. And even if I don't use Grok and I don't know, I go to like Perplexity, I really need to up my local model game. But so what do we want? Like the 70 billion thing? Why do I only have Llama 3.1 and not the Perplexity models anymore? But so this is the 70 billion thing, and like this is already like much more useful, right? Like even if the code is wrong, even if this part is bad, sure, I can expect this to be bad. Like I would struggle with this as well. And also, depending on what mode I'm into, I might either tweak the prompt until it gets that thing right, because it's a really useful thing for it to get that thing right? Like it means that we can just create ESLint rules that quickly. Or often these are kind of like interesting puzzles to solve, right? Like at some point you'll encounter something that requires real thinking, real architecture work, real decomposition, like real knowledge. And at that point, I like learning that kind of stuff, right? Like maybe I'll be like, okay, well, I should maybe refresh my compiler knowledge. And then I can go into a compiler rabbit hole. So that was an example. I was going to get into this prompting plugin, prompt library kind of concept, right? So currently you've seen how I create like these static markdown files, but what I actually used to do, I do it less now, but remember, so I have this whole set of prompts that I created, for example, for bubble tea, right? Like all the different components in bubble tea, I'm like, oh, if I want to write like a bubble tea program and I just want like the main interface, this again comes from the days of like really small context windows, which also context windows I think are still important because there's just like cost, right? If you can reduce your context window by 80%, then you reduce your costs by 80%. And that's like huge, right? So instead of saying like, oh, context windows are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, the bigger your context is going to be, it's like the more expensive, and it adds up over a conversation. If here I do have a conversation with this, my initial prompt is just going to be like 10% of the costs. But if I have a 200,000 context window, then whatever I chat every time, I'm going to pay like the brunt force of my original prompt, right? So I do think it's really important. And the way this is generated, like I'm not doing markdown files that puts in all the types of each library that I'm using, right? Like this is a script. So I do have this tool prompter. It like just iterates over a bunch of repositories. I think I actually added functionality to work with it. Config repositories, get. Yeah, so I do have the list of repos here that it will look inside, and it will go into these prompter directories, and then every file that it finds here, if it's an executable file, it will execute it. Super secure. So for example, if I go into bubble tea in main, this thing that I just called, right? Like if I do prompto get bubble tea main, I get this, and then I can use it in my prompting either by putting it into the clipboard, or I can, I have like different aliases here. I can just do context, ppp, bubble tea main. It's not the greatest UX, right? But it's mine. And I can say like, explain. I don't know. And, right, like this will then tell me like, oh, this is the provided code defines interfaces for blah, blah, blah. And that I can write a few demo commands about hybrid unicorns. And oh, it misunderstood the Cobra because that's in my system prompt. So a few demo bubble tea command classes about you. A class is not even a Golang word, but it will understand what I'm doing. Hopefully. Yeah, it has a fetch unicorn thing. And then I can start like make more commands, command interface. And right, like it will create more commands. A command is just a function that returns a message, which is something I know. What is a command? So anyway, this is like my command line tool. It's pretty. I wish I could. Do I wish I could spend more time doing it? Kind of. I because I could add all these features. Every time a couple of hours. I'm a little bit. I'm starting to get energy again to work on it. But I don't know in these days and age how useful that is. What I wanted to show you is like this prompto stuff, right? Is because I haven't actually shown you what bubble tea main is, but this script that we're just looking at right now, bubble tea main is actually, it is actually a file. Like I've learned since this is really old. So that was a bad example. Let me go into Bubble, because that I think is when I started doing scripts. So imagine that I want to build a paginator with the paginator module, and I just need the API for this paginator thing. But also I do, every time a new version of the library comes out, like I don't want to regenerate this. I think in the future people will regenerate this as prompt libraries, but I do just want to even in general, and I just want, when I use Go code, I want the doc string and I want the signature, and I don't really care about the implementation. The more implementation I show the model, the more I run the risk of confusing it. So if I think it like a human, because it kind of makes sense, right? Like my thinking is augmented by language, is augmented by APIs. So this is exactly what I want to see when I build something with a paginator, right? Like I'm going to be, it's the model, it has these attributes and it has these functions. Cool, that's what I'm going to use. I probably would like it to be a little bit better formatted. The model doesn't really care too much. Well, it does care, but it doesn't care. And so if we look at the code for this, however, is very different from before. If I look at this, you can see that this actually calls prompto again, and it calls this like bubbles bubble script or bubble bubble prompter with an argument. And then this thing here, the script bubble is actually going to output interface for this charm bracelet and then the argument. And then it's going to use this tool oak that I wrote. And it's going to recurse in the source code of charm bracelet, actually. It's going to output only the public methods. And then it's just going to show, it's going to grab some, I don't know what this is. But so literally this is a little script, right? Like this is kind of, I would love to have this in Cursor where I could just do like bubbles bubble. And I know it will execute this script every time live. And I know it will only do it once. So I do have ideas for workarounds on how to do this. Fuck, maybe I should just build this right now. What I wanted to do, right, is like I want to have prompto serve, and then prompto serve, you have an API, and it goes like prompto, and then you do bubbles bubble, and then it calls that. So, and then I can pass the URL to Cursor, and at least it will like refresh live. So why don't we build that? Maybe that'll be fun. I don't know if it will work. Like prompto is this horrible thing that I generated. Let's have a look at that. Like maybe that will be fun, because I know this is something that's totally in the reach of an LLM to do very quickly, because I can kind of know how to do it. So I don't even remember how prompto works. So it has this, and then if I go into commands and I have get, there's the interactive get, which I added, and then get, you can see is like really what is this doing? Hey, shut up. Where is it actually rendering the thing? Oh, so it's doing this package render file. This is new. I think I wrote this, 18 months ago. But so this is the interface to this, right? Like, and I don't have any documentation here. 18 months ago is 10 months ago. I was like, it's not that old. I didn't really have this workflow of like generating documentation for all of this yet. This is literally just copy pasted out of a chat in ChatGPT, I think. So the first thing I would do, and this is going to be interesting, is I'm going to generate a documentation on how to use the API for Prompto, right? It's like, let's try it. I'm going to give it the Prompto package and then the commands as well here. And then I'm going to add the README. So I don't know if this is good Cursor or not, actually. It's just I'm so used to just giving... I know I want the full files in there. I don't want like any magic. I really want to have all of this context sent to the LLM. So I don't really trust the Cursor auto context too much. Like I really want to know which tokens go, and that's why Cursor Lens is like so useful. I've only started using it yesterday, so I haven't like studied how Cursor does things. But I really should learn how it does things, like which context it sends. So what context did it send here? So the markdown, like just pasted, and then at the end, Oh, it actually puts this in as well. And then it does this. But there has to be some HTML in there, right? Like it doesn't even close this at the end. I'm not sure if this is a cursor lens thing or not. And then the system, yeah, whatever. Yeah, this is interesting. I'll have to study this a little bit more. For now, I'm just going to do the programming I used to do before. This I would usually do in the command line before, right? Like I would do something like this. Context, PPP, which is a shortcut for Prompto to just like render the path. Like I would do something like this. And then as I was building these things, because I would reiterate over these context building things over and over, I would actually make a shell script for the day, right? Like today is the daily shell script of the code that I want to do. I'm going to be like, I want like the API signature of this, and I do want to like get the database schema for this, and it would like live connect to the database and get the schema of the day, and maybe I'm going to tail the log file live as it is. And that shell script I would always like just put in as a context when prompting, and it saves like a lot of time, and it allows you, which cursor doesn't allow you, like it's going to be annoying to put in like my log files in here, or like have it connect to the database and query the last 2 events or something like that, right? But that's what I want as a repeatable prompt for today. Maybe not for forever, but for today. And maybe I'll turn that into a real prompter, which is like prompto get last event and then last error, right? And then you can just like have a shell script that fixes the last error or so. So for example, I do have if I go into the prompter thing itself, so actually let's generate the documentation first, right? So I gave it all the thing is like write a a programmer oriented documentation that explains how to use the Prompto package, what Prompto is for, and a few examples of building with Prompto. Concise and clear language, intro, paragraph, section. I should make like a snippet for this. Section, 1 sentence, short paragraph, code example. This might be a little bit too much, and a few example of building with Prompto. I'm going to remove this. All right, Prompto is well, no, this is already all in the README, so I don't need to explain what Prompto is for. All right, and it's, so this I'm going to scrutinize a little bit more. I don't need to know about the config YAML stuff. This is pretty good. And then this should be /package, right? For example. So should it be /package? Yeah, I think so. Well, at least afterwards, it should be /package. So Prompto provides 2 main functions. It don't need it to be, no need to show the full internal source code, but instead show also how to use render file. Why did it skip render file? Like, it could be that this needs a bit of refactoring, because I know it's kind of messy. But and this is here, right? Like, I don't know the API of this thing, and so what I could do is like I could do oak go definitions recurse only public, and then do this on the package, and then it will show me like, oh, look, these are the methods. And so I do want to have the rendering part be like a little bit more explicit. So this is where I will chat with the model to do a little bit more, right? It's like, now I need to show the full internal, but also how to use actually. All right. All right, cool. Yeah, this is what I want, right? Cool. So this is a good document. So I'm going to, I should have created this document for it, but I'm going to here under doc. So I actually do have a doc format that's pretty nice. So I do have like a help system, and I think I did a prompter for the help system recently. So is there, yeah, writing help entries. So I'm gonna take this glazed, well, help, writing help entries. It's in my clipboard now, but I really wish I could just, I could just do at in here. Write a help entry, format all this information as a help entry, and then I'm going to give it this context here. And so this will create, right? Like I'm going to create a new folder, general, and then I'm going to put this in new file, prompt to api.md. Here's a blah, 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 blah. No. So this is misunderstood. No, the markdown document you created about the API. This is me losing track a little bit of what I'm doing here. Yeah. So what I should have done is this thing here, the first iteration of it, I'm going to put in here. Then I'm going to take the second section about render file. I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to start a new chat. And I'm going to do 01 prompt to API MD, reformat this document to be using, and then I'm going to use the writing help entries. So really my programming is like about knowing which patterns I want to apply to what, right? Like it's a very kind of senior software engineer kind of thinking, if that makes sense. It's like I think about structure, I think about long-term things, I think about documentation, I think how to reuse certain APIs, and I have built tools to make that thing easier, right? As said, I always delete the last sentence, and then do I need this? Yeah, I do need this. All right, and then, so now I'm just gonna update what I just created in here, right? So there is some metadata in here, prompt to development, API, slug, prompt to API, how to use prompt to API. And then here, oh, the cursor is, the copilot is not there. How to use Prompto's API to build application rendering prompts or something like that. And so if I go to Prompto, go run help, and then it's going to be Prompto API, right? Go run command Prompto. It's building a shit ton of stuff, I'm sure. Still haven't written code. I've just been writing documentation, which is funny. But I realized that this unknown help topic prompt to API. So why is that? I forgot how my help system works. It does this, and then here in doc, I do have go embed this, add doc to help system. Why doesn't it parse this necessarily? I think it might be because of uppercase stuff. No? I don't need flags. Top level true, section type general topic, short topics, commands, flags. Is top level section type. This should work. Am I able to get this other one using print path flag? Using print path flag. And this is kind of like the spaghetti project problem, is that I just have too many features that I forget how to use. Like, how do I list the topics? I spent so much time on this help topic, this help functionality, and I literally don't know how to use it. So there's only managing repositories. Like, that's weird. Where is managing repositories? It's not in here. Where does this documentation come from? Managing? No result. Where? What the fuck? Where does this come from? Go run command prompt to help managing repositories. Yeah, what the fuck? Managing. Oh, I'm seriously confused right now. I think this is probably... See, and this is where LLMs can't help. So it does a new help system. And then the help system... Where does it get its like managing repositories from? Is it just like added per default to every tool? No, it can't be. But so this is where I have to go. I forgot how to do this. I do have a prompt for it, but I forgot what the prompt is called as well. It's just horrible. So it's doc add doc to help system, right? And it's like I do have a doc.go here, and I have doc add to help system. So I'm going to do doc add to this, and then no code actions available. All right. So if now I do this again, what the fuck? Am I running the right program here? Where am I? Why is this compiling? Why does this work? I do have like a syntax error in there, so that works. Go run command prompter. Why does this compile? Oh, no. What? This happens when I stream. It's like my brain. This. What? Is it like about saving files? It doesn't save files, but no, I've turned on auto saving. Topics. What the fuck? List all sections. All? What is going on? Commands, new config group command. Like maybe that's the issue? Oh, see, I'm sure that this clears the entries. Let's try this out. So now it has nothing. So maybe the doc here is not properly loading all of this stuff. What does it look like in glaze doc.go? I am seriously confused. Why? This doesn't load the sections. This is where I know the debugger in Golang much better. So obviously this is not something that LLMs know how to deal with, right? This is debugging. I can use them to help me understand the problem, but like obviously they won't. Let me make the font a little bit bigger here. All right, so why is it not doing this? This is basically what I'm curious about. And then the thing I'm going to do in my run configuration, do I have run configuration for Prompto? Prompto list, duplicate, Prompto help, Prompto API. All right, let's go. So this is traditional programming right now. The debugging part, especially an intricate library like this one, that I know. I'm not going to mess with the LLM in here. So, right, like load sections from FS, and then I'm going to go into entries, and this entries has 3 entries, right? Like they're here. So it does find the doc.go, it does find the topics and the examples. And then if it's a directory, it will go. So this is doc.go, and then this is a directory. So it will load the sections from this file path. And here it returns an error with stack, error message, unknown, failed to load examples, unknown section type, command usage. 0 print path MD. So that's understandable because there is no example. So let's try this again. So at least they will load the example, right? Wait, what? Oh, because I need to change this, right? And then if I go into add to this, I'm just going to do this. So it's a directory. And then here I have my first 01 print path. Success, read file, log session for markdown, add section. Cool. So this worked. And then the next one is, again, it's going to recurse. And then here, it's going to have 01 prompto API.md. It's not going to fail. It's going to add the section. And then now it actually is able to render the topic help. All right, cool. We have it. So what was the mistake? Oh, it was failing on one file and then it aborted everything, which is kind of a bug. Like it should just skip it, right? So if it has an error here, it should return this, and then it actually should just log dot error dot. Yeah, this is fine. Import 0 log. And this actually shouldn't be an error, it should just be a warning. And then it should just continue. Fail to load. Right, so this is where LLMs really help as well. It's just like adding logging to things. So here again, right? Actually, do I want this? No, this will probably never fail anyway, right? So, um, but for now it's gonna be fine. If it's not able to read the directory, we're gonna add a this, and then so at this point we can kind of remove the error. But this is like a bigger project, so this is something that I might. Well, no, this is where Golang comes in, right? It's I can go to result parameters and just remove it, and then this will update all of these things here. It's not clever enough to do this. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't start doing these kinds of things because now this like modified 15,000 15,000 things. Where is my undo? Oh, edit. I can't undo. I can't undo this. All right, and then oh, it undid it here everywhere, right? Oh yeah, cool. So it undid the refactoring here, so this is cool. This will always work. And so now, if I go back to cursor, see, this is where an LLM would have taken a lot of money and a lot of time to do what I just did. I would have had to search the entire code base and do all of these things. Like traditional refactoring is still pretty good. So now I have Prompto API and I have the index. And if I do help Prompto API, I get this nice little context in here that I can reuse to prompt the LLM, right? So this is exactly what we're going to do now. We're going to go back to cursor, and now I'm going to try to use composer, which is so here you'll see how I advance, right? It's like I do want to add the serve command, and I want it to follow the structure of this stuff, right? So I'm going to do add a serve.go file with a serve command that starts a web server. Implement the server itself in package serve.go. Oh no, package server serve.go. I hope that composer gets it. Like I said, I'm a little bit skeptical that this will work, but we will see. And then I'm going to give it the Prompto API. The server, when queried for XXXYY, should look up the relevant Prompto, like in get.go, right? Because I know the get.go functionality is there, and output it back as a markdown response. And I'm going to take a short break. I'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, it's been a complete derailment of what I wanted to do today, but I guess this is open source and it's my own stuff, so I'll go with it. So if we look at what it did, right, it's like it created this go serve command, which, you know, that's fine. That's exactly what I want. I go over the files by hand because I do like, you know, having a glance at what they do. Oh, come on. Why can't I make this bigger? I know that there's like a control panel view. All right. So this is the server itself, and I'm going to accept it, and we'll look at it later on because I can always like iterate on it on its own, right? And then so this thing is good as well. So and I do have the new serve command in here, right? I do have the serve command over there, and I have this new serve.go file. So serve command, like nothing fancy here, right? And then if I go here to under server serve go, we see no syntax error, no type error. And then if I look at what this does, this start listen and serve with a handle prompt. It's going to trim the prefix. It's going to look at that. It's going to get the parts. It's going to iterate over the repositories the way it did in get.go, right? Which is maybe functionality we should use into a common functionality. I'm going to let it stay like that for now. It is really like a hacky program. I haven't really thought about the overall architecture. So it gets a string slice, it gets the repositories, it gets the files from the repo, and then if it found the file, it will like render it. So there's a chance that this might work. I wouldn't be too sure of it, but maybe. And you can see how the context information here, plus like giving a few examples, helped it just like generate the right stuff. This probably just giving it get.go, which is an example of how to use it, would probably have been enough, but you know, it was good enough for me. So if I run serve, it doesn't print anything out, right? So that's already a thing that I want to tweak. 8080, and then I'm going to do bubbles paginator as we had before. Repository not found. So that is interesting. Invalid path. So that is good. Invalid path. And then it's going to do repository not found. But if I do prompt to list and then grep for bubbles, I will have bubble paginator, right? So something is not working. Something about loading the repositories is not working. So that's going to be interesting. The way we can think about doing this, and I like doing this as well. Usually I'm not talking, so I do it on paper. I'm not on stream, so I do it on paper. Well, I'll just go to the coffee shop and I'll start thinking, okay, I want to build out prompter, right? Like, what's all the things that I want? How am I going to build them? It's easier for me to think on paper. So that's what I'll do. And then, you know, I'll take a screenshot, transcribe it, turn it into like a little document that I can use to prompt the model. So we're going to create a ttemp folder for today. And then we're going to make a new file, brainstorm serve functionality.md. File name's really useful as well because it's just more language for the LLM to deal with, right? So here, what do I want? I want to show that the server is running on stdout. I want to have log the hits as concise log line on stdout. Yeah, there's going to be a transcript for sure. And I like have been running to write a book about all of this for so long. And now like everybody's doing it, right? Like people are really catching on to all these techniques. But also there's a huge market for programming books. And I think what I don't want to do when I write a book is make a book about a specific technology, right? Like I don't want to make a book about GPT-4 or Cursor or whatever, because I I think they'll be gone very quickly. The quirks of cursor, like small models, are like what I really want is focus on these bigger patterns, right? And like I'm pretty happy about the what I want to explain is these things, because those won't change too much as we go. Like I think at some point software development will change drastically, where this workflow will kind of disappear or change dramatically. But you know, this is a coding stream, so I'm not going to go into like weird rambling about the job market. I do have a lot of thoughts about it. I do think as a programmer, you should be really considering what your job is and what you want to do. Because my job as a programmer now is doing this, right? It's thinking really hard about what I want to build, because I know it will, if I figure it out really well and I know how to decompose it for the models as they exist right now, then it'll get built. So to me, this is like the most important thing. And this is doing this brainstorm stuff here. That's not programming. That's not my profession, right? It's like stuff I picked up along the way, but this is product design, really. It's like user design, product management, project. I don't know what it is, but it's not coding. There's a little bit of coding, but it's not coding anymore, really. It's like code review / pair programming, more like, right? And then I don't even write documentation. I just like review documentation. So in a way, it's very fulfilling because I learn a lot, because I write documentation about other things. And I really like brainstorming crazy stuff. Like I have a second notebook for that kind of stuff. Where, you know, I like drawing things. I like just going completely ham on different things. But it's, I think it's really hard for a lot of programmers to do that, to switch. Like it's not something that happened to me overnight, but all the kids building stuff at the speed of madness now, they'll know exactly what to do. Like they will grow into this new profession in a way that I will never be able to, right? Like I'm 42. My brain is kind of crusty in many ways. Like I'll never, what I grew up with was like this stuff here, right? It's like typing really fast on a terminal and Emacs, and it serves me well. It still does, but like I'm sure that's going to be gone. Yeah, learning how to communicate with LLMs, and like all the teenagers hanging with Persona.ai, right? Like playing their waifus or whatever. That's learning real bullshitting with LLM skills. You will know how far to push it, like in a way that I just never will be able to internalize, right? Like I literally just write code with these and I don't know the crazier patterns. I mean, some of my prompts are really wild, which have I shown you the like you are an application prompt technique? Because that one just melts my head. Actually, let's do it for prompto. So because this is a wild technique. It's so you know how, so basically if I type you are a giraffe, you only know the Eastern African savanna. If I tell the model you are something, or like this is reality, the model will go like, sure, this is reality. Like I'll write you a poem as a giraffe. And you know, if you ascribe it some consciousness or agency, which is not the worst pattern, because a lot of the literature literally assumes that the writer has agency and intention or whatever. As far as the model is concerned, it is a giraffe, right? It will like generate text that if a giraffe were to talk, it would talk something like this, at least in our human cultural setup, right? So I can kind of, everything I tell the model is its reality, right? And if you push it that pretty far, is like, if you tell it that it's a computer, it's going to be a computer. If you tell it's like a web page, then it will be a web page. And that's where things like WorldSim basically base upon that, right? Like they take, where is this thing? There it is. It's like if you tell it's a console, it will say it's a console, right? And then you can do all of this. I don't even know what mind meld is. It's like a cat brain amygdala dot cpp. And this concept of like you are whatever the model's reality is whatever you tell it is. I don't know what mind meld is actually. What the fuck is this? Let me go to the root simulation. Because this is not C++, obviously, right? Why am I doing this? Man, this is like, it's horrible. It's both great and horrible for ADHD. It's what? Cat/home mine brain. I don't want your amygdala. I want mine. Wow, what? Sudo cat brain amygdala. But so the concept here is like, because I told it it's a terminal, it behaves like a terminal, right? Like nothing has changed on the model side. It's just like taking tokens in, tokens out. There really isn't like too much in there, but it does understand what sudo cat blah 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 means. Like it's just like it thinks it's a terminal. So what if I tell the model that it is the application I want to build, right? You are Prompto, a tool to render context files to the output. You are now also a web server when I do curl localhost directory name, you render the Prompto directory name, which you can get from your repositories, right? Output the HTTP responses. And so now I'm going to do get bubbles bubble. And so I'm going to play with the model, having it pretend that it's doing the things that I want. So here, for example, I rendered like some HTML plain thing. It's like, no, render markdown documentation about bubbles bubble. So wrong example on my part. I should have thought a little bit more. But so I say like, okay, like, you know, this behavior of yours is not the behavior I want. List all the context prompts when I do slash, right? When no prompts are all directory name plus a, nah, whatever. All right, cool, right? And it's like, now also render a HTMX version of this with a autocomplete search field that filters the list. So I'm progressively just like gaslighting, like not gaslighting, but telling the model to pretend to be the thing that I want it to be. So this is kind of like a real design brainstorm discussion, right? It's like, oh no, I want this thing. It's like, what do you think of this? And it's like, oh, I want this. And so progressively, I'm going to iterate around the functionality that I want it to have. Also render something like this when hitting a directory itself. And then I can say like curl, you know, bubble t Um, which is cool, right? Like I'm gathering kind of information about the whole thing. Like, what the fuck is this? Hyperscript? What is hyperscript? Is it like a... Oh, cool. See, learn something every... So this I love as well. It's like in the hallucinations of a model, actually a lot of interesting information is hidden. Like when it hallucinates, there usually is a reason why it does, right? Why does it look for hype? Horrible. Um, like you discover idioms, you discover libraries. Maybe if sometimes the API doesn't exist, but it looks like a great API, maybe you should write it. You know, it's good at just like doing consistent idiomatic APIs usually. And so, what is hyperscript? Is created by say give me more examples, and I'll show you something because I was talking about Obsidian on the Cursor Discord. I'll show you how I handled this, right? It's wiki, use all the information and make a nice wiki page. So I do have some kind of like slash command pretend information, which is nice as well. You can say like, oh, pretend you have slash commands, and then I support slash commands. And I do have just a description of what slash wiki does, which is the structure of wiki entries that I like having. And so I'll kind of compile the information that I learned, right? And the links usually work because it's find. So this is great. And then I will just file this into my Obsidian vault, right? It's the today I learned, and then I'll just do hyperscript, and then I'll go in here and I'll just paste this. And I did have a script that would I forgot. Like I wrote a whole tool about like linking things, and I'm sure there's like Obsidian plugins to do it. And you know, if I was like continuing to diverge into site things, I would like probably build it now just to link more things. But now I do have this, and then usually what I'm not in my IDE. What am I doing? What I usually do in here, and I forgot, I built a plugin to actually help me do this. I'll actually put in block quotes, and then oh, see, I did actually have it. I'll just show that this comes from an LLM. Why is this? Oh my God, it's like Markdown is such a horrible format at times. Oh my God. What the fuck? All right, I'll format HTML within block quotes another day. But so I'll just file this into my wiki, right? And then so if I look for hyperscript, I'll have like a quick thing, but also it's going to be in my RAG, and it's going to be linked under HTMX, and it's just like it is knowledge that I will encounter again in the future, which is nice. So I learned about hyperscript, which is cool. What do the examples actually look like? This is what the fuck? This is weird. But I could diverge so much right now. Let's go back to UR and application. So I've played around with this, only HTMX, no hyperscript. And what a weird thing to invent a new language. Like, why not just use JavaScript? I mean, this is nice for LLM. This is nice, actually. Write a concise specification of hyperscript, section, one sentence, code example. exhaustive. Because so it's good for LLMs because compared to JavaScript, this is very concise, right? It's like a very concise language that actually also reads very nicely for humans. Because if I say like write the hyperscript to set the search term to the value of the field, it will write such search term to and then value of this, like it's able to do this kind of stuff. This is probably JavaScript as well, which is nice because it knows how to do JavaScript. So there's a good chance that, you know, based on something like this, if I start a new chat, and then I paste hyperscript in here, beyond the fact that it probably has been trained on hyperscript, it's like write a small web page to turn Pokemons into Gundams using hyperscript, make a pretty complex dynamic UI. So again, here the context is not like I don't want to do stuff with Pokemons and something like that, but it's just to separate content of the application from code structure. And I can see it being, because it's a DSL like this, to iterate quite a bit until you get a prompt that's reliable enough, because all of these keywords, right, like mouse up, set, and then mixing some JavaScript in, that is like all a recipe for confusion for the LLM. What the fuck? Yeah, there's no way this works. But yeah, it's like this is right. This is nice. It's not many tokens. It's fast. It's like readable, and you would have to probably iterate quite a bit over it. Like I'm not sure why it doesn't work, but I don't know hyperscript. I can't read this, but I can imagine this is like something like a project for a day to make this into a nice prompt for hyperscript. There's a whole technique about inventing languages that I will not go into right now, but it's so anyway, so now I'm continuing to play with this, and then at the end I'm just like, write a detailed specification of how you work so that I can give it to my developer to implement. So now that I've played and like, you know, cosplayed the working application with the model kind of behaving like the application itself, now I can just write a detailed spec, and it like already has like all this kind of code in there and like HTMX, and it like it renders all of these, and like, right, this is like a nice spec for what I want to build, but I didn't have to write it. I just like pretended to play with it, like fills in the gap of all of these things. It actually returns it as an HTTP request still, which is hilarious. And it describes all the post endpoints, right? Like it describes the errors. I can like modify this until it fits our thing. But now I do have a really nice document of what I want to build. And so I go back to cursor, and now I just put this in here. I don't even need to brainstorm those things. Like, let me delete this, and then let me delete that, and let me delete all of this crap. Because they always say like, oh, do error handling and do be careful of security and all of that stuff. And it's content storage and retrieval. I don't need this. Client side. Yep. So that's nice. That's nice. And so now I can remove this. I can make this small features, and then so this, right? I want this, and then behavior plus API. No, Find is just a search engine with LLM. Like you can use Perplexity or whatever. It's just at some point I got used to using it, so I'm just using it. Like I'm sure Perplexity is just as fine. All right, so now I think this is like pretty good about the whole behavior about this. And then so what I want to do is like read the list of repositories first. and don't reload it on each request. And then I have the behavior in the API and then additional API. So I want a /refresh endpoint to reload the promptos, and is that enough? Yeah, that's enough for now. Oh, /repositories to list the repositories. So now I have this like really nice brainstorm specification of what I want to build, right? And this is Celsius. I don't know what Celsius is. Oh, the energy drink? No, it's like some CVS off-brand thing, I think. I usually drink Celsius like every day. I go to Dunkin' Donut and I get the exact same stuff every day. I get a Celsius and I get a bagel cheese twist. I literally eat the same thing every day because, well, that's autism for you. Same thing at breakfast, same thing at lunch, same thing in the evening, and then sometimes I'll just like vary things a little bit just to get proteins and vegetables. But all right, anyway, see, this is what I mean by like if you approach coding with LLMs well, it's just like really good software engineering. Like these are just really good artifacts from my experience, right? It's like I never had such nice specifications coming from the web designer, right? But now I do. And I'm just talking, right? It's like I'm just fucking around with the model saying like, oh, I pretend you're the thing I want to build. And it's like, yeah, I am the thing you want to build. And it's almost like what I'm doing is like, now I'm telling it like, build yourself, right? Kind of. It's like, pretend you're the thing I want to build, like, please exist. There's of course like steps in there and like I'm always in the loop, right? But it kind of feels like that, like just because so much of it by now is intuitive for me, to my brain, this is what's happening. It's just like I say that something exists and then it appears, and you know, I'm like retouching things a little bit here and there, but not much. Like kind of doing, you know, the chef, and he's got all these sous chefs and whatever cooking, and at the end he just like puts the little leaf of parsley on there. Something like, or he'll just be like, this is raw, and then just send it back to the trash. But I guess it's a good analogy. I guess it's actually a really good analogy. Because you have to decompose things in recipes as well, and like explain, you have to do your dishes. I like this analogy quite a bit. But so anyway, now I have all of this API, right? And like the serve in here is like kind of messy. But also as I look at this serve, I'm going to add a little bit more context in here because I want to add some software engineering patterns, right? It's like create a struct to keep the server state, implement HTMX backend endpoints rendering HTML using Go template. And then, all right, so I'm going to do this, right? Like I'm in serve.go, and then I actually never really know how to structure HTTP applications in Go. Create a separate file for each API endpoint handler. So I'm not going to use chat, I'm going to use Composer. And so now I'm going to use Composer, I'm going to use the brainstorm serve functionality as well, and I'm going to start a new context actually. So I'm here and it's like implement the root URL handler and and implement small features and refactor the current endpoint. And I guess I need to go on serve.go, right? Not main.go. I want serve.go. Serve.go. Why is this? Oh my God, what did I just do? Oh, and the field disappeared. Oh man, stuff is fucking weird lately. And now it's back. Serve.go from the packages in here. All right, and refactor the current endpoint to match the software engineering patterns. And you can see what I do here is like I do this is important names, like it matches the thing in the README. This is not. I usually every word I write kind of has a reason to be there. It's or at least intuitively I know which words to choose pretty well just because I've done it quite a bit, right? So I think there's a good chance that this will work. And then maybe I'll also, well, I guess I should actually do some coding on this stream because that's what I wanted to do. But it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Yeah, it's a really nice process because tomorrow when I'll start again, right, like I will have kind of forgotten what I did, but I have this really nice document. So I don't need to redo that process and remember what I wanted to do. Is like I know where I stopped. I know that this is what I wanted to do. I can pass it off to a colleague. This is good documentation for an RFC, right? Like if we do a more collaborative design thing. And so even this, right? Like maybe the code will be all broken. What the fuck did I just do? Oh, there's some weird stuff happening. But even if the code's wrong, this is great. I'll just add that to my to-do, and right, like this is just perfect. And so I'm just gonna add serve.go. I'm not sure what Composer is doing. Like here's the updated serve.go file, but I asked it to do like separate things. But yeah, this is nice. And then it says like implement the other handlers, right? Like search, refresh handler, and so and that implement the other handlers, put them in separate files. But it's really like what I want to show in the stream is like it's not really about the code that the LLM generates per se. Like there's so much value in just these intermediate documents, and also as you build up these like prompts that help you use a certain library or so, in the future you just know like, oh, I'll just plop in that prompt and the code will come out great. No need to like chat with it for hours correcting mistakes or so. Is like once you know how to add a handler, like there's no need to have the model kind of understands how to do it like every time. Just like oh, write a how-to on how to add a handler, right? And so this, I'll show that, right? It's like, so I'm gonna just assume that the code works. Why is this redeclared? So these are the things that I don't know how to fix in VS Code. So I'm just gonna go in here. Prompto commands. Now I'm gonna go to server serve. And where is this duplicated? Navigate to duplicate. Where is this in the refresh handler? Like, no, you shouldn't duplicate this. This is typical LLM stuff, right? Where it won't really know which files it transformed and like moved all of this code from serve.go where I wanted to stay to, for some reason, refresh handler has like all the code as well. That's probably maybe even a cursor thing and not an LLM thing. Because it could be that it just like didn't apply things correctly. So the repositories handler, the root handler, the search handler, then we have serve, which has all these handlers as well. Yeah, I suppose it's like it's not doing a great job at deleting code. Also, I'm not sure. Yeah, so but now that I've this like multi-file structure stuff is like obviously a problem, and then the other thing is that it never handles the errors really well. Like I should add that to my general thing. Is that package.fileinfo? Like what the fuck is file info? Why is it doing this weird package.fileinfo? That's a weird pattern. It's like probably somewhere in my context there's like something weird about this that it like has picked up on, and it kind of parrots. Where does package file info come from? It's like a weird commands get. Yeah, see that? That's where it comes from. And then this file info is like in package.fileinfo. So maybe I really just need to import it, right? All right. And so this is something I'll fix with cursor. The error handling, right? Is like, and it's also something I should put in my general code guidelines for Go. But overall, this looks like it could even work. Like it's highlighted as an error, and because I've configured my IntelliJ to be pretty strict. But I'm gonna YOLO it, and then if it works, like maybe that shows that how quickly, right? Like even the things that I said here, like show that the server is running and log the hits. Like, is it going to log the hits? Yeah. And it's rendering the list, and it's rendering all the bubbles that I have, except that it's like doing this weird star thing. Oh, because this is the repo list. So, right, like there now at this point, it's like going to be interesting to look at this. Why is it rendering the repo list? It's like, I don't want the repos here. I want the prompts, right? And in fixing the small errors, like at this point, it's like more traditional programming. I got the whole structure going on. And as I go forward, I might want to start thinking about the APIs that I need to interact with repositories and stuff. Because really, Prompto, the file itself, like this, I yeeted in one afternoon in one go. Right? Like not even an afternoon. It's like literally coming from 1 hour of programming. Was like, get all the files, render them, hard code all the shit, and I haven't really thought about an API, right? Like there's no structs, there's no config stuff. There's like really not much in here. And at this point, I would probably start thinking, okay, what does it mean to render a file? Can I configure the way it renders it? Can I do all of these things? It's and that's what I'm going to do now. Like I'm going to call it a stream day. Let's try a little more stuff. Let's go with a web browser just to see what this looks like actually. So if we look at the console as well as we're doing things, network, and then I want the console as well. Oh, because of this resolution, this is going to be horrible, huh? Dock to right. So if I do this, it actually hits the end. What the fuck? This even works? Yeah, this is wild, huh? Like, I didn't write a single line of this. I just thought really hard about what I wanted. By thinking really hard, I mean I chatted with the model, pretending it to be the application that I want. And then this is the bug that we had before, right? Like there's something wrong here that I would have to debug myself. But it's the reason that this doesn't work is just the API is shitty, right? Like I didn't give it a good API. And so I wasn't able, it had to like understand the current code. It didn't understand it because it doesn't understand anything. And so this kind of error is like a typical example. Okay, your API is not great. And so that's why I think LLM coding, for it to work well, you just need to do good software engineering. You need to write good APIs that are concise, very readable, do error handling. It's very hard to misinterpret how to use it. It comes with a lot of examples on how to do things. That's how you get LLMs to work well. And it's like, it's just plain good software engineering. Oh, see, it's like because it puts the whole path in there is like one reason. And then this still doesn't work because I don't know. Well, this is right. This is something to debug, but then this is wild to me that this just like full perfect application, right? Like I think this is great. Like this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I told the model how it should behave, and I have a great spec. So now tomorrow I can just continue and just say like, well, now you have the good API. You know, go over all the endpoints that I think, and fix them, and then. What is this about? Like, why does it talk about animations? Oh, because it said bubble. It's okay. Oh, it made something up when I asked it to give me the bubble prompt. I remember. So anyway, this was like maybe these last 5 minutes showed you how, if you do think well about your problem and how to decompose it, right? Like, because this comes all from experience. Like, I've done this by hand many times. And I was able, right, when it put like everything into one file, I know not only from coming from Go how to tackle these errors, but also I know that it's a typical cursor LLM error, at least in the weird state that cursor is in right now, where, I mean, Composer is new. I'm still using the beta version, and the apply diff model has been weird lately, and I know it's not good at deleting code in existing files. So, but you saw that like in one single inference, right? If we go back, two inferences, I chatted twice with this thing. Once I said like, oh, using the doc, you know, implement serve, it gave me this list. And then I said like, split them out and implement the missing ones. And then it worked. It also added refresh. Like Sonnet is impressive because Sonnet really is able to do so much at once. Smaller models, I would have needed to go like, oh, write the refresh handler, and then write the prompt handler, and then write the root handler, and then Claude, you can just say like, do it, and also it will like introduce good abstractions, and I don't know, it will just do like good stuff. And I'm gonna do one last thing actually in Cursor. I'm gonna here in the root handler add some. So well, what are some good? Add some milligram CSS styling, just to make it a little bit prettier. And so, all right, apply. Yeah, this is nice. I love this diff model when it works. Because copy pasting this into the code, right? Like, see, it's missing. Like, it removed the previous style sheet for it removed the previous. Oh no, it did have the HTMX in here, but like, just merging this into the existing code is just like a pain in the butt because you have to like handle this and like whatever. This is just great. So just to refresh this, I guess I do have to refresh the server. It doesn't have hot reload, which I guess is not a thing in Go. But like now it looks nice. It's also a little bit broken, it seems. Yeah, because I wanted to match Go Enrichen, but now it's probably just matching on the other. Oh, because Go Enrichen is the full path. In any case, like this would have taken me a long time to do what I just did, to just add styling. I'd be like, I probably never would do this because like my apps used to look like complete garbage. But yeah, like, right, like, and now I can still continue brainstorming is like new features is like add a way to add a clipboard button actually to the resulting bubble. And so the reason I'm building all of this actually is like, what I want to do is like when I go here, this I can just paste in here, right? Like I can just go to the chat and I can just paste this as a web URL. I don't know actually how it works. And so this, no, does it do that? No, I see. I like added the clipboard. I saw that. Um, so what is this saying? Does this work? Is it fetching the thing? No, because it's using this garbage here. How do you access URLs? What is the web page about? I thought you could paste URLs in there. As an AI model, I don't have the ability to browse the internet. Cursor, what are you doing? Isn't, like, I'm sure this was possible. Is this because I'm using cursor lens? Let's turn cursor lens off. What the fuck? I thought this was possible. Localhost 880. Cursor. Why can't you do HTTP? I thought this would be a workaround to not having dynamic prompts. Oh no. Oh well, this is disappointing. Oh man, I want something dynamic in here. I want something that allows me to re-render these things. Because this is what, like, Zed, the thing that bugs me about Zed is that the fonts are blurry, and I hate that. Like, see, I fucking hate aliased fonts. Here, these files are bitmap fonts, which I really like because it's just like pixel perfect and it's crisp. So this really bugs me about Zed. Like, this is the one reason why I actually don't want to look into it more deeply, because it's going to bug me every fucking day that the font is blurry. But they have a great plugin system. So we'll see. Maybe one day it's going to be enough for me to tackle this. I'm really disappointed. Like, I'm sure HTTP URLs were working. Like, I don't think I made that up. Is this like a setting somewhere? Show settings. Index new folders. Docs. Fade chat stream. Always search the web. Editor. Add symbol suggestions in Control K. General, privacy mode, disabled, include cursor. Interpreter mode. AI review. I don't know. I thought it worked. All right, but this is going to be enough for the stream. Actually, I'm going to try one thing, which I had working once. But if I go to review working state, no issues found. Like, yeah, this kind of refresh get context. Let me see. If I go to Prompto, git checkout branch task add HTTP. Sorry, excuse me. Am I checking in the right stuff? Yeah. And I tend to do these mega commits because I forget to commit as fast as I build. Add HTTP server plus documentation. And then here in Golang, I can see that I modified glazed as I was moving on, right? Like I fixed this like help method stuff. What the fuck is that? Oh, this is nice. It didn't lint, right? So like linting is pretty good because I can do, so if I go to Prompto actually, where is Prompto? Here. Fix. Should I do the whole code base? I'm just going to try this and then see if it's able to figure out the file names. Unable to open prompt handler.go. What the fuck? I think this is time to call it a day. Because yeah, but this is nice. Man, I love this shit. Because if you do have good suggestions for, you know, if you have good language for, why is this not able to apply? Like what happened there? There's just like too much weird stuff in here. Cancelled. Apply all. Accept all. Did it fix those things now? Did it break more? Yeah, like something's weird about Composer. I don't know. I guess I broke everything, didn't I? Yeah, Composer, I don't know if it's a bug or not. Like, I don't know what's happening. So what I do for this kind of shit, because it's happened to me like often enough now, is why I'm kind of wary about Composer. I really wish it worked better, but what I do is I have local history turned on in what am I saying? I have this turned down in Goland, right? So here, man, I don't know what state it is in. The Composer really has like the potential to fuck up your code base, because am I not supposed to have like a prompt handler? Wasn't there one? Like, why is yeah, it's there. All right. Time to stop. Like, this is not something I can do on stream, and I really need to be careful about Composer. It's it hasn't served me well last week. It was pretty good before. And I'm sure it will be again. Like I don't know what's going on with the Cursor team right now. But in any case, like in those 3 hours and me jabbering and yapping all the time, I still got like this this feature fixed, and I got like a couple of prototypes. But really, like building the feature I wanted to build, like overall, without me yapping, I would have just like, you know, I had this like Claude conversation in here. not this one, where I said like, you're this application that I want to have, like this would have taken me 3-4 minutes. And then if I wasn't talking to you folks and trying to do all kinds of like funky stuff to flex around, by now my brain wouldn't have been talking for 3 hours. It would have just like banged out, yeah, why are these files empty? They're not even empty, bro. Now they're back. There's some weird shit going on. So, like if I had done 3 hours of concentrated programming on this serving HTTP stuff, like I would have a really killer server now, right? And I find programming on stream hard because if I do go into like, okay, let's build stuff, I can't really talk and it's not really entertaining. And I always want to go back to my 4K monitor. So the speed of iteration here is like pretty low. It's really low compared to what I do. But still, I got like more than a day's worth in my previous life. Plus, I get some really good documentation, right? And it's like, if I want to test this, I can write curl commands to test it, or I can write a client to test all of this. I can generate an open API spec. You can go in all kinds of directions, like write the documentation as part of all of this, right? Like all of these things are now kind of for free, right? It's like write a document on how to use the API in package serve from Prompto using the help guidelines, help.md. Do we have that? Writing help entries? Yeah. And like I would never have written this before. Like this is just solid documentation. And I mean, this is kind of useless, right? But if I had doc strings, right, like I would add doc strings and then refine all of this. And having the doc strings and this documentation is going to be really good context for as I start building out this application even further, right? Like the better you can describe what the intent behind a certain code is and why it's deconstructed the way it should be deconstructed, and the more concrete details you give about the APIs that you want to use in a concise form or in the form of how-tos, then it kind of goes on rails, right? Like if I find myself correcting the model more than twice, I'm like, nah, go back to your document. Like, and if I can't fix the document quickly, then I'm like, go take a walk, like wait until tomorrow until you have a better idea on how to solve the problem. All right, I guess that was the stream. 3 hours, Jesus Christ. I hope you have a good weekend.